Skipping moisturizer once feels harmless. You're running late. You're exhausted. You forget. Whatever the reason, you skip one application. And nothing terrible happens. Your skin doesn't immediately feel worse. There's no dramatic change. No obvious consequence. So it seems like skipping once doesn't matter. Like it's not a big deal. Like you can afford to be flexible when life gets in the way. But your skin doesn't experience it that way. For extremely dry, reactive skin, even a single mist application starts something that you won't feel immediately, but that can take days to reverse. And more importantly, it changes something psychological that makes the entire routine more fragile. Here's what most people don't understand about routines. The hardest part isn't doing the routine. It's restarting after a break. When you're in the middle of a consistent routine, when you've been moisturizing every morning and every night, without exception, there's a momentum to it. The routine feels automatic. You don't question whether you'll do it. You just do it. But the moment you break that momentum, even once, something shifts. The next time you reach for your moisturizer, there's a hesitation that wasn't there before. It's subtle. You might not even notice it consciously. But your brain has registered that skipping is now an option. That the routine isn't as non-negotiable as it used to be. And that tiny hesitation, that split second where you consider whether you could skip again, creates friction. Every single time you restart the routine after a break, you're not just resuming where you left off. You're rebuilding the psychological momentum that makes the routine feel automatic. This is why people who skip just once often find themselves skipping more frequently. Not because they've decided to abandon the routine, but because each restart requires more mental energy than maintaining unbroken momentum does. Think about it this way. When you've been consistent for weeks, doing your routine feels like brushing your teeth. You don't debate it. You don't negotiate with yourself. You just do it because that's what you do. But after you skip, even once you've introduced doubt, now every application becomes a conscious decision instead of an automatic behavior. And conscious decisions require willpower. They require mental energy. They require convincing yourself to do something instead of just doing it. This is the hidden cost of skipping. It's not just about the one missed application. It's about losing the psychological momentum that made your routine sustainable in the first place. It's about converting something automatic into something that requires constant effort. And when you're already dealing with uncomfortable skin, when you're already depleted and tired, having to consciously convince yourself to moisturize every single time makes the routine exponentially harder to maintain. With extremely dry, reactive skin, every interruption creates hesitation, and hesitation accumulates. The first time you skip, you create one moment of hesitation the next day. The second time you skip, you create 2 moments of hesitation, one from the previous skip and one new one. The third time you skip, the hesitation compounds further. This is why routines that work for weeks or months can suddenly collapse. It's not one dramatic failure. It's an accumulation of small hesitations that eventually make the routine feel too difficult to maintain. And here's what makes this particularly challenging for people with very dry, sensitive skin. You can't afford many interruptions. Not because you're weak or undisciplined, but because your skin needs sustained, reliable support to maintain any level of comfort. Someone with normal skin might be able to skip moisturizer for a few days and not notice much difference. They have more margin for error. Their skin can tolerate inconsistency without major consequences. But when your skin is already struggling, when the moisture barrier is already compromised, even small breaks matter. Your skin starts losing moisture faster. The discomfort starts returning. The visible dryness comes back. And because these changes happen gradually, you often don't connect them back to the skipped applications. You might think your skin is just having a bad day, or that the product has stopped working, or that something else in your environment changed. But the real issue is that you broke momentum. And now you're trying to rebuild it while your skin is already becoming uncomfortable again, which makes maintaining consistency even harder. This creates a vicious cycle. You skip, which creates hesitation. The hesitation makes it easier to skip again. Skipping again makes your skin less comfortable. Less comfort makes consistency harder. And harder consistency leads to more skipping. This is why consistency feels so fragile when you have extremely dry, reactive skin. You're not just maintaining a routine, you're constantly fighting against the psychological friction that every interruption creates, while simultaneously dealing with skin that becomes uncomfortable if you're not perfectly consistent. The margin for error is smaller. The psychological friction is greater. And the feedback loop between interruption and discomfort is tighter. Which means that what looks like a simple routine failure, I just stopped doing it, is actually a complex interaction between physical discomfort, psychological momentum, and the compounding effects of small interruptions. So let's redefine consistency. Most people think consistency means perfection. Never skipping, always doing exactly what you're supposed to do, exactly when you're supposed to do it, with no exceptions. But that's not consistency. That's perfectionism. And perfectionism is brittle. It doesn't bend, it breaks. Real consistency isn't about never interrupting your routine. It's about resilience after interruption. It's about how quickly you can restart, how little hesitation the restart creates, how sustainable the routine is even when life gets complicated. This is a fundamentally different way of thinking about skincare routines. Instead of asking, how do I never skip? You ask, how do I make restarting as easy as possible? Instead of treating interruptions as failures, you treat them as inevitable parts of having a real life with real demands. Instead of building a routine that requires perfect conditions and perfect execution, you build a routine that can withstand normal life pressures and still function. This shift in perspective changes everything. When consistency means perfection, every skip feels like failure. Every interruption generates shame and self-criticism. Every restart requires overcoming the emotional weight of having messed up. But when consistency means resilience, skipping once doesn't carry that emotional charge. It's just something that happened. The question isn't, why did I fail? The question is, how do I restart easily? This is what makes routines sustainable for people with extremely dry, reactive skin. Not trying harder to be perfect, not feeling guilty about interruptions, but building routines that are designed to be interrupted and restarted without losing momentum. Think about it. If you know interruptions are inevitable, you can plan for them. You can create systems that make restarting automatic instead of requiring willpower. You can remove the psychological friction that turns every restart into a battle. This is the difference between fragile consistency and resilient consistency. Fragile consistency depends on perfect conditions and collapses when those conditions disappear. Resilient consistency expects imperfect conditions and survives them anyway. And when you have skin that needs sustained support to feel comfortable, resilient consistency is the only kind that actually works long-term. If your routines keep failing, the structure is wrong, not the person. This is the worldview shift that changes everything. Because as long as you believe routine failure is about personal inadequacy, not disciplined enough, not motivated enough, not trying hard enough, you'll keep approaching the problem the same way. You'll keep trying to be more perfect, more consistent, more careful. You'll keep white-knuckling your way through routines that aren't designed to be sustainable. And you'll keep blaming yourself when they eventually collapse. But once you understand that the structure is the problem, you can fix the actual issue. You stop asking, why can't I stick with this? And start asking, what about this routine makes it hard to stick with? You stop treating interruptions as personal failures and start treating them as design problems. If your routine can't survive a busy morning, that's not a you problem, that's a routine design problem. You stop trying to change yourself to fit an impossible standard and start building routines that fit your actual life. This is what most skincare advice gets wrong. It focuses on products and techniques and ingredients. It tells you what to apply and when to apply it and how much to use. But it doesn't teach you how to build routines that can actually survive real life. It doesn't acknowledge that extremely dry, reactive skin requires sustained consistency that most routine structures can't deliver. It doesn't address the psychological friction that makes consistency so hard in the first place. And because it doesn't address those things, people keep cycling through products and routines, always hoping the next one will finally work, never understanding that the problem isn't the product, it's the structure. So if your routines keep failing, it's not because you're undisciplined or unmotivated or not trying hard enough. It's because the structure you've been using was never designed for skin that needs sustained, resilient consistency to feel comfortable. This is why systems matter more than motivation. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. It depends on how you feel, how much energy you have, whether life is going well or falling apart. Systems don't require motivation. They're designed to function regardless of how you feel. They remove the need for constant willpower by making the right actions automatic. When you have extremely dry, reactive skin, you can't rely on motivation to keep your routine going. Because you're already depleted. You're already dealing with discomfort that drains your mental and emotional resources. You don't have extra motivation to spare. What you need is a system that works even when you're tired, even when you're stressed, even when life is chaotic and you're barely holding it together. You need a routine structure that acknowledges interruptions will happen and is designed to restart easily anyway. You need to remove the psychological friction that makes every application feel like a decision. You need to build resilience into the routine itself instead of expecting yourself to be resilient. This is the shift from trying harder to building better, from relying on personal discipline to creating structures that don't require discipline, from treating skincare as a test of willpower to treating it as a design problem with practical solutions. Because the truth is, if you've been trying to manage very dry, sensitive skin for any length of time, you've already proven you're committed. You've already demonstrated discipline. You've already tried hard enough. What's been missing isn't effort. It's the right structure. And structure is something you can build. Thanks for watching.